Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the AmandaFest podcast, where our mission is simple. It's to empower and inspire you to take aligned action in creating your dream life, whatever that looks like for you. Today, we have a very special two-part episode. I am inviting back two of my former guests, Emily and Claressa. You may recognize them. Just as a little refresher, Emily runs her own business, Mindset with M, as a certified mindset coach, hypnotherapy and EFT tapping practitioner, and neural energetic encoding and rewiring practitioner. It's a mouthful every time. And Claressa also owns her own business called Love Led Wellness and is a holistic practitioner and sacred plant medicine facilitator. So, the three of us are about to embark on a powerful journey together as we prepare to sit with ayahuasca this upcoming weekend. In this episode, I want to dive deep into the transformative path of personal growth through plant medicine. We're also going to dive into the healing power of sisterhood and community, discussing how these connections enhance our self-discovery and growth. This episode is designed to be a resource for those who are curious about the plant medicine path, but who may not have anyone in their lives to talk to about it. We also hope to demystify the medicine path for listeners who may not have heard of it at all before. And ultimately, our goal is to inspire you to connect more deeply with yourself, whatever that looks like for you. So, before we dive into this juicy conversation, as we've done with every episode, I just want to take a quick second for us to ground, drop in, and then we can just dive right in. So, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if it's safe to do so, I invite you to close your eyes. Maybe put a hand on your heart and one on your belly, and just start noticing your breath going in and out. And with every breath in, I want you to think of something that you're calling in, set an intention for this listening session. And with every exhale, I want you to think of something that you're letting go of. So take a nice deep breath in with your intention. And exhale, something you're letting go of. We'll do two more just like that. Nice deep breath in and out. And last time, feel free to shake it out. Make some noise with the exhale. Nice deep breath in. And welcome. Welcome to your bodies. Welcome to AmandaFest. And welcome, Emily and Claressa. Hi, guys. So happy
Hi.
to be both back. Thank you for saying yes to this very unconventional experience.
Yay, we're excited.
Before we delve into the conversation, I wanted to just give a little preface as to what ayahuasca is. I know some people have heard of it, some people have a vague understanding of it. So I just want to explain a little bit about what this medicine is that we're about to sit with, and then we can dive into this conversation. So, ayahuasca, for those who don't know, it is a powerful plant medicine that has been used for centuries by indigenous tribes in the Amazon for healing and spiritual awakening. It's a brew made from two different plants, one containing a natural compound called DMT, and the other one allowing our body to process it. This experience is highly personal and can lead to profound emotional and psychological insights. People often seek ayahuasca to heal from trauma, gain clarity on life, or connect deeply with themselves and the universe. It's definitely not something to be taken lightly. It's typically done in a ceremonial setting with trained facilitators to guide the journey, and it definitely can bring up intense emotions. It's been known to be extremely transformative. So, the three of us together and separately, we are journeying for the first time this weekend, and I was really feeling called to dive into a conversation with my two soul sisters to talk a little bit about the medicine path, what that's looked like for all of us, and truly how it's brought us together. Maybe we can start off, Clarissa, if you want to get the ball rolling. I'd love to hear how your transformative journey began and when you found plant medicine and what that beginning process looked like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you just for having us here with you. I'm so excited. Also so nervous to embark on this journey. So let's be real. Excited and nervous. It all exists at once. I'll take it back to like 7 years ago when I had this idea of I'm just going to live a life of happiness 365 days out of the year. And I was like, all right, every day I'm just going to try to be happy. And then there were moments that I would find myself not happy. And so I was starting to become hard on myself, and I started to feel bad that I wasn't able to hold this happiness for 365 days. And I was in a transitional period of my life where I knew that there was this spiritual realm that existed, but I also was raised in a Catholic home. And so I was somewhere in between. I knew about plant medicine, hearing about it from other people. But then from the background that I grew up in, I heard all these negative things about it that created this fear inside of me that held me back from wanting to try it. And then I had this idea. I had a really good friend of mine, and I said, look, I'm in this transitional period where I no longer feel connected to my religious background where I'm at, but I do have this spiritual like feeling inside of me. Don't know exactly what it is, but I've heard that plant medicine can take you there. That was just my little knowing that I had, right? Um, and so I said, okay, I'm going to create the like most sacred space, right? Because I had this religious background. I know how to create a sacred space and do things intentionally.
Mhm.
So it was like, all right, I'm still going to take some of these tools that I've learned from this foundation that was set for me, and I'm going to apply them into this new realm and world that I'm like diving into and curious about and wanting to know more. And so I created the scene, right? Like I got some mushrooms and I called my friend over, and I also called my cousin over, and I told my cousin to be watch. I'm like, okay, you're not going to do any medicine, but you're just going to watch us so that if you need to call 911, then call 911. And like, and so the friend that I was sitting with, she had already sat with mushrooms before. And so I thought, okay, I'm creating the most safe space for myself, right? That
Mhm.
made me feel safe going into something so new. And so her and I just looked at each other and we saw the bag of mushrooms, and she said, you take half and I take half. And I was like,
Let's
all right, we're going
go.
in. We're going in. So we both took half. And prior to us taking the medicine, though, we wrote down intentions, what we were hoping to get out of the experience without even knowing. I didn't have the knowing that I know now of being intentional with sitting with
Right.
medicine, but I still had that inner knowing, and I kept that, and I've kept that throughout this entire journey, right? I didn't know intention was important until later down the road. So I was still sitting intentionally when I sat with the mushrooms the first time. And so we had this incredibly profound experience where at first it was very, very slow. Um, and then all of the sudden I just surrendered to the medicine, and I said, okay, I'm here for so much more. I'm here to just be a part of the experience. And the experience was so emotionally profound. I tapped into feelings that I didn't even know were there. I felt all these different sensations that I had shut down from my trauma from the past of being told to be quiet, to shut down, like all these new things that were happening inside of my body that were so dormant just from life and experiences and from adults telling us to be quiet. And there's this thing that is coming up in my mind of like just sit there and look pretty basically.
Mhm.
And so it's like, okay, so I learned to not have any feelings, not even have a voice. And in this process is it started to reactivate all of that for me. And so because of that experience, I was like, oh, there's so much more here that I don't even know.
Yeah.
And that's where the journey started, that has started this continuing trickle effect of diving deeper into different plant medicines and really understanding their sacredness, their power, and their love that they have for us too.
Wow. Wow. When was this initial experience? When was this?
Like 7 years ago. So what is
Okay.
that? Like 2017, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was your first intentional medicine experience. Had you like taken drugs before? Like, was that just your first intentional time, or was this your first time experimenting with psychedelics at all?
That was my first time experimenting with psychedelics at all.
Okay,
Like,
great.
yeah, it was the step in the door.
Amazing. Well, Em, I'd love to hear yours. I don't think I actually ever heard that story of your first experience, so that's kind of cool. Emily, you're
Yeah.
up.
Always learning new things
I
about each
know.
other, which is funny. I'm trying to think because I was more into drinking back in the day and a little weed, but I was trying to think when was my main like first big experience. And the thing that came to me was actually when the world shut down during 2020. Um, I was living with two other friends at the time, and they had some. It wasn't mushrooms; it was LSD. And we're in the middle of lockdowns, and we're like, "Well, what else are we gonna do?" So, um, I had never really tried it, and they have, so I felt safe, and it was very intentional. I love what you said about the space, though, because I definitely didn't do that. I was in my home, so it was safe space, but it was really messy, and that was driving me crazy. I remember being like, oh my God, I could be cleaning this forever. That part of it's really, really important. I had a great experience. I was with my two friends who were in a relationship at the time, but then I kind of went off on my own. I was like, okay, you guys are all having your experience. I need to go have my own because
Mhm.
I just want to be alone. And I remember them kind of like knocking on my door and being like, hi, are you okay? Like, do you need anything? I'm like, I'm dying. But like in a good way. Like, I'm like, I'm fine. But I was really in it and I was processing death. I was processing
Wow.
like my parents dying, my brother, all my family, my friends. It was just like, yeah, it was very heavy, but it was really beautiful. And then after that experience, I was still feeling it, but I wasn't quite still in that realm. Or I was in it, but not as heavy. I went outside for a walk with my friend's dog, and that was like so beautiful because I was just talking to all the trees and the plants, and I'm like, wow, like this is our world that we live in all the time, but I haven't seen it like this before. Um,
Yeah.
and it connected me into nature and just feeling like, yes, there's so much more, but also there's so much right in front of us that we just don't
Yeah.
realize until you kind of see it with a different perspective. But it was a great experience. I didn't even put two and two together. That was probably my main first time with big medicine and being intentional. Then from then on, I was like, oh, okay. I feel like this is a tool. Like this is like
Yeah.
so magical, not just taking it and going to a concert or a festival or whatever. Like, okay, I've done that. I guess technically the first time I did do stuff at festivals,
Yeah.
it was a great
Same. Same.
experience.
Different, very different experience
Very
dropping
different.
acid at Coachella versus sitting intentionally in a medicine ceremony looking at your shit. Very
Yeah.
different experience.
Oh yeah. I remember even I was at Coachella
Yeah, same. Same.
and like in MDMA, and I was like, oh my God, like whoa, I had never had it before. So I was like, this is great. But again, totally different mindset experiences. But it did open my mind to
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, this isn't so bad or wrong or shameful or, you have to be scared of these things.
I
So
was just thinking that in my head. I was like, I was so afraid before I had done anything. And the fear really stemmed from control, right? I was like, what's going to happen if I take something and I am no longer in control of things? I can't control where my mind goes. I can't control. And that letting go and surrendering, which we'll dive into, was the scariest part for me, but also the most profound.
oh, for sure. For
You said something earlier that stuck with me. I'm trying to listen to both of these stories and just have this conversation from the eyes and the perspective of somebody who has never sat intentionally with any medicine before, and or the eyes of somebody that hasn't had these types of experiences. And one thing that you brought up, saying that during that first trip, you were processing death and that you were dying and that it was horrible, but it was great. Can you explain a little bit about like how both of those things could be true at the same time?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, death is a heavy subject, but at the same time, it's something that we all go through and experience or will experience at one point. It's a topic of conversation that's not really talked about often, or it's like, this is what we believe and that's it. And like, that's it.
Yeah.
But happen in so many different ways and ego deaths, and
What's an ego
I
death?
an ego death is when you think that you're someone, you have this character of, oh, I'm a mom and I work here and I do these hobbies. And then you go through an experience, you're like, oh, wait, no, I don't actually like any of that. I'm actually not that person at all. Those are all programs. Those are all what I've been told to like, what I've been told was right, what I have learned from societal standards. But actually, when I look deeply into my heart and my soul, I don't like any of that. So that version of me,
It's
that
dead.
character
Hmm.
playing, gone now. That's completely gone now. Now I'm rebuilding a new character, a new, ego. Um, but it can be true at the same time because it was a really profound experience to process death, not only just of myself, but of the people that I love.
Hmm.
And it's cathartic because, when you cry, it feels good. You might be sad, but it feels good to like let it out. And
Right.
your body needs that feeling to be transmuted and alchemized and released in some way. And so crying is a beautiful way to do that. So I was feeling, yes, like, wow, like I have to process, you know, this is real. Like this is
Right.
something that happened. And I'm so grateful that I did that now before it actually happens
Right.
because I kind of have accepted it.
When was that experience for you?
Um, the first time the MDMA Coachella, that was like probably 2017, and then this was 2020.
Ooh, my first LSD MDMA experience was 2017 Coachella as well.
Well, maybe we're
So
there together.
2017 is really alive for all of us then.
That's wild. Yeah, 2017 was the first time I ever dabbled in any type of like psychedelic, but that was absolutely not intentional whatsoever. And now I'm really deep into the world of psychonauts and psychedelic awareness, and I go to conferences and talk to people in this space, and not everybody does it the way that we do it. Some people really do just go to concerts and still have profound experiences. Like I remember the biggest lesson that I took away the very first time I worked with LSD was perspective flipped on its head for me, where I was looking at the trees and I was listening to music and I was like, wow, like we could both be looking at this cup right now, and what I see to be true is true to me because I see it, but you could see something totally different and that's your truth, and I have no idea what you're seeing versus what I'm seeing and how to compare and contrast, and being like looking at that tree over there and I'm like, I know what that tree looks like, but right now I'm looking at that exact tree and that tree looks totally different than it normally looks. Like you're taught that when you're young, everybody has different perspectives and everybody sees things differently, but it's a really hard concept to grasp and fully understand until and unless you're able to have a felt sense understanding of, wow, that really is just my perspective. And I think having that understanding of the world and looking at the universe that way and looking at everything that way, even when it comes to things that we are programmed, things that our parents taught us for so long, anything that my mom said to me growing up, I believed to be truth, the truth. But now when anybody says something to me, I'm like, yes, that's true for you because your truth and your reality and what you see and what you know, you have an entire, like, I think algorithms are maybe the best way to describe it. Your algorithm is totally different than my algorithm. So what I believe everybody knows and everybody sees, I look over at your phone and it's totally different.
It reminds me of, if you want to explain this, because you'll probably explain it better than I can, but the disco ball, how you explained
Oh,
that to me. And I forgot
yeah.
who said it, but
It was Jessa Reed, and She has a podcast. She's amazing and she's hilarious. And she said to think of the perspectives as like a disco ball, and all these little squares have different perspectives and they shine their light on different parts of the room, and like
Right.
they're still on the same thing.
They're all connected.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
connected.
Like-
It's the same like matter, but they have completely different perspectives. The thing I like too is the ones that are closer together, like this, if it's a ball here in this perspective versus this one, they're probably going to be totally different.
Right.
But they're going to shine completely different parts of the room. But if they're a little bit like this one and this one really close together, they might still be different, but they're also kind of similar. You know, they're a
Right.
little bit together. So if you are surrounded with people who are like-minded and you find that in your own communities, you're going to shine the light. It's still totally different perspectives,
Right.
but you're still closer than on the other side of the ball.
And to add to that, all perspectives matter because that's what makes the whole.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that segues very nicely into us connecting. I've been saying on this podcast a bunch and on my social media that like you become the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So it's very, very important to surround yourself with people that inspire you to be the best version of yourself. Hi, Hermie. We have a 4th guest on the podcast, Hermie, which is Clarissa's dog, if you guys are watching on video. I really wanted to do this episode specifically because I just remember like my journey. If you listen to my solo podcast, I kind of outlined the stages in my spiritual awakening and, you know, the different layers to which led me to where I'm at now. And one of them was just being around people that were working with medicine. But like at first, I didn't feel comfortable doing it. But I do know that before I was around people that did medicine, I didn't know anyone that did it. And then if anyone like talked about it, I had heard someone say ayahuasca once and it was just this foreign thing. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. I would never do that. When things are so far removed from you, it's really hard to understand. And by the way, I don't come on here to say everybody needs to sit with plant medicine. This is the path for everyone. I don't believe that at all. I believe this work to be extremely intense. It's warrior work. It really is not for everyone, and I do believe it to be helpful to just have awareness of what's possible, of what's out there. And if it calls to you, that there are avenues and ways in which to connect with community that can teach you more about it. And also recognizing that I've had many conversations with people that have never sat with any type of medicine in their life, and they've arrived at the same places that we've arrived at in terms of perspective and understanding and insights and awarenesses. It's just everybody's path to that place can be different. So the first time I ever sat intentionally with medicine, I was in a ceremony with Emily. And then I think very shortly after that, the 3 of us had sat in a ceremony together. And then it was almost like cosmically the universe from that point on was like, you 3 shall journey together through the universe. Like, it's scary. It's scary saying yes when you're deciding what medicine you're going to do, when you're going to do it, who you're going to do it with. All of those decisions are really overwhelming. They're really scary. They're really intimidating. So I don't think many people have a group of people that they have done. I've done almost every medicine ceremony with these 2 girls. It's been so helpful to have in the moment. You're in your own journey, you're in your own experience, but to look over and see a sister and know that someone that you love is there and you're not alone. And then also for integration. So medicine is very powerful, but the most important part of any type of medicine ceremony is the integration. And what that means is that you get these big downloads, you get these big insights, you figure out that you're a little tile on a disco ball, you see the universe breathing, all these crazy things in your brain is like, and that's while you're in the experience. And then you come out of the experience and you're like, wow, I just had all these crazy thoughts and understandings. And now what do I do with all of this information? How do I take all of this new insight that I have, all of this information that I've just gathered from the world that's maybe in complete opposition to what I thought my whole life, going back to the ego death, Emily. And then the real work is now, how do I take all of that and integrate it and make it a part of my day-to-day life? How do I take those lessons and apply them, you know, like show my math. So yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about both of your perspectives on having community in these spaces and what that's meant for you and what that integration process has looked like thus far. And also the progression too of the different types of medicines and where we're at now, where we're going.
Yeah, I will say that everyone's path is completely different
Right.
and meant to be exactly how it's supposed to be. Your path is going to be whatever you feel like. I kept feeling the pull and the nudge and the tug to be in these spaces, right? Even though I was afraid and scared, but I did them in increments because we had each other. Because sometimes when we sit with these medicines, things can become distorted a little bit because it's changing our perspective from something that we once believed to be true. Now there's things that are being added to that truth. And so it's like, how do I integrate this new truth that exists into this truth that also exists?
Right.
And having the conversations between all of us has helped me personally integrate some of that stuff because you're like, oh, whoa, wow, like, I don't know how to make sense of this too sometimes. And I just need someone to vocalize that I trust,
Right.
that like loves me and supports me and that like knows me, and that we can have these conversations back and forth to where it feels like it lands better in my body than where I was holding it in my head.
Right.
I'm able to actually land it into my body than holding it here in all of my thoughts and letting it ruminate by myself. It's like, no, okay, now I've made more sense of it. I can actually feel it in my body.
Like, what do I do with all this information?
Right. Yeah. Like, because it can be a lot. It can.
I read a book a few years ago. It was saying that one of the things that keeps people stuck is when you're presented with a truth that's opposing to the truth that you've always believed, many people will reject that truth, right? Over and over. Now you're being presented with information that shows that whatever you used to believe to be true is not true, but that's your ego, right? That your ego is like, no, no, you could show me all the proof. You could show me all the things. And I'm going to keep believing the thing that I believed because I believed it. And I don't want to believe anything else. And so some of the big lessons that I've learned in plant medicine has just been trust, surrender, non-resistance, allowing is truly just like, all right, show me what's up and being open to seeing it. I'm curious to hear when you talk about this to people or people know that you're in this world, what are your most common questions that people ask you? I know for me, people are like, well, what if you have a bad trip? They're like, what if it's a bad experience? Or what if you throw up?
I've gotten some of those, but then I've also received like, what do you feel or what do you experience? I can share that with you. Absolutely. And your experience is going to be completely different. And I also don't want to take away from your experience by adding my experience to yours. Our experiences are uniquely designed for each of us. And I feel that each medicine will tap into exactly what we need to guide us on our journey of the things that, for me, I keep hitting this wall. When I hit this wall, the medicine shows me that this wall doesn't exist. It's a wall that I've created. And so like it teaches me how to crumble the wall and keep moving forward until I hit the next wall. And there's probably going to be so many other walls after that. But I've surrendered to that, that's my path and that's my journey. And that's what I'm supposed to experience is through these moments that I do sit with plant medicine.
I resonate with that deeply. What about you, Emily?
I would say, as far as questions, it's very similar. It's like, what does it feel like? And what was your experience? Or why
Why would you do that to yourself?
Why are you putting yourself in a situation? Well, you're talking about control, Amanda, like where you can't control it, where you're scared, where you have to surrender. Yeah. And I guess you don't have to, but it's a lot better if you just do. And just being open to like, okay, yeah, maybe I will have a bad trip. Maybe I will throw up. I don't know what's going to happen. Or maybe I'll see, maybe there would be no visuals. Maybe I'll just feel stuff. Like going into it with zero expectations can be challenging sometimes because you hear people talk about their experiences, but just remembering, I don't know. Like, I don't know anything. So, especially going into something that I've never sat with before, And maybe people asking, are you scared? Like,
Yeah.
are
Fuck
you,
yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it is scary.
It also puts things in perspective too, because nothing else is scary anymore. Anything that
It's
used to scare me, I'm like, no, I've done scarier things. I've even been skydiving, and that's not scary in comparison to the work that we've done. Like,
right. And
For
like,
real.
that's empowering. It's like, oh wow, I feel scared. We keep saying it. I feel fear and I'm gonna do it anyway.
yeah.
And that's like the gift. That's even integration as well. When you're like, oh, this came up in ceremony of like how I don't speak up for myself. And I have this opportunity right now to speak up for myself, but I'm kind of scared. I don't know. But you see it now. And
Mhm.
there's no unseeing it. There's no going back and like, I'm just gonna forget that. I got all these lessons and downloads. I'm just gonna pretend. You can
Yeah.
try, but
Yeah. This path, it takes all of the shit that maybe like anything that you've like numb, suppressed, avoided, buried, pushed under the rug, pretended didn't happen. This is the place where you face it. And
mhm,
so that is the scariest thing of all for people, because they're like, wait, I buried all that shit. I don't want to think about my childhood trauma. I don't want to think about my bad relationship with my sibling. I don't want to think about that horrible abusive relationship. I just want to pretend that didn't happen. But the thing is, what you resist persists. So if you pretend like all of these things didn't happen, it's going to start manifesting in different ways. And unfortunately, sometimes it starts manifesting physically. You might get really ill or have breakdowns and things that come out of nowhere, but it doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from you pushing things away and avoiding them and ignoring them and keeping yourself busy and staying on your phone and like doing all of these things, doing anything and everything to avoid and distract. Whereas this medicine work and all of these different medicines in different ways, their purpose is to take a mirror and be like, just look at it. I just want to show you. Are you ready?
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah. It provides us the opportunity to get out of our heads and really just to be able to just witness,
Yeah.
not even with no
Yeah.
judgment. It's not judgment. It's just to be a witness of my behaviors, my choices, my decisions. And then I will say throughout each journey that I've had, it's like I've had these lenses that were black. And then each time it's like, here comes a new color, right? Here's a
Mm.
purple lens. Here's a blue lens. Here's a yellow lens. Here's an orange lens. And I'm like, whoa, I used to think that just this black
Was
perspective
life.
existed and that's what life was. And now I have so much more to see and be grateful for and to really appreciate life for.
What is your why? When people ask that, why do you work with this medicine? Why do you do this work? What do you feel is the reason? If you want, I can share mine.
yeah, share yours first.
Yeah. I say that my why of why I'm doing this work, it's an inner calling. It doesn't even feel like a choice, to be honest. I feel like once I started tuning in to myself and I came back online, and again, if you listen to episode 20 where I deep dive into me coming back into my body, but once I arrived back in my body, once I got present within myself, this awareness of, oh, I'm supposed to do this work. I feel like I was brought here not only to do this work for the collective, but I think taking ego out of it and just zooming all the way into my own family, like unit, my own family lineage. It's like my family needs this work. No one else in my family has done this work. And I feel as though I was born into this family specifically to do this work on behalf of me, on behalf of my immediate family, on behalf of my lineage, and also to be that example for others of just what's possible, of how you can show up, and to do the work for those who aren't doing the work as well. I feel like that's a big piece of it. Like we said, not everybody is meant to sit in plant medicine, and that's totally fine. And there's no hierarchy to it. It is not for everyone whatsoever. And I do believe that the insights that you gain from this work ripple. And so when Emily, you do this work, Claressa, when you do this work, it's like everyone in your immediate circle benefits from that work that you're doing because you're rippling that out. And so for me, yeah, my why is it's not a choice, it's a calling. I'm supposed to do this work and I'm scared shitless. But also when I tap deep in, when I'm checking in and I'm like, okay, shit, is this a yes or is it a no? It's like every part of my body is just like, yeah, it's a yes. Feel the fear and do it anyway, girl. Go, go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I resonate with that a lot. Like, same. My why comes back to I know that I'm meant to be doing this. Almost like I don't have a choice.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it's like you have to do this.
Yep.
Like
That's how I feel.
because I feel like what has come before me has already set the precedent here, and I don't like it. And
Yep.
so I don't want it to continue.
Yep.
So it has to stop somewhere because not only did I see it in my parents, but then I saw it past in my grandparents and little things that connected. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to make my children feel the way that I've felt. So this has to stop somewhere.
Yep.
And I recognized this as like a little kid, like really, really young, but just not having the wisdom and knowledge until I lived life to get to this point where that's my why comes back to I don't want it to continue.
Right.
I don't want the trauma, the pain, the suffering, the financial like stress or any of these things that have limited my lineage
Right.
from being like from other than being like a beautiful amazing person in society, all these things that have limited them or made them feel limited or less than or not enough or whatever, that has to stop. Like
Yeah.
I'm tired of feeling that way, that I don't want it to continue.
Ugh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I resonate with that so deeply. The cycle breaker, that's what keeps coming up. You're the cycle breaker. And people are like, what is that? They talk about the black sheep. The cycle breaker is the one in your family lineage that's like, this ends with me. Growing up for me as well, it was always the excuse of like, oh, it's not my fault. This is how I was raised. Oh, it's not my fault. My parents treated me like this. Oh, I didn't know any better. And it's like, well, now we know better. So we have to do better.
Yeah, and no judgment, hate,
Yeah,
nothing to like
nobody's
our
fault.
ancestors that have created and paved this path. They have been my teachers to
Totally.
learn and to look back on and like
Totally.
yeah, the contrast, thank you, to create a new experience.
Totally.
Although
Totally.
it can be hard and has its challenges, but like that's the whole point.
And that's specifically with ayahuasca, they call it grandmother medicine. And it's really supposed to be, you know, all of these medicines have different energies to them and lineages. But what I've heard over and over again about ayahuasca specifically is that your ancestors are very, very present in the experience. They may show up for you visually, they're with you in this experience. And to our point as well, that we're feeling called to it, it's like, they're waiting. Like they're waiting for us to do this work.
They're like, thank you for creating the change for us. Because something that I was actually talking to about with Shay, she said that although our path can be challenging and hard, that we get to bring our ancestors into this world through, because like my belief is that we reincarnate and over again, and sometimes you can come back as someone's dog or as someone's parent, or the parent child roles reverse, right?
Yeah.
That's my personal belief. And so when we birth these kids, is that it's like our grandma and grandpas that didn't get to live the beautiful life. We're creating the beautiful life for them to live, so that when we come back, we're creating a more beautiful life for ourselves as well. So it continues to cycle through. So even though, yes, it feels hard and it's crazy and whatever, the most beautiful gift that we can give is to rebirth our ancestors and give them the life that they didn't get to experience. So like, I feel like they're behind us and they're like, yes, thank you, because I want to come back and have a beautiful life that I get to live this time. That's not suffering. That's not like traumatic or whatever, because we all get to experience those different lifetimes.
I love that. I love that. Emily, what about you? What's your why?
It's so much bigger than just me. Like it is about me. It's my intention, my lineage, my healing, my programming. Yes. And it's also about the collective, not even just my lineage, but I feel like just energetically, it's creating a massive positive energy impact in the world that ripples, you
Yep.
know, whether I'm talking to somebody that I just met or I'm talking to my family that I've known my whole life. Like, you can create so much love and positivity, and even just holding space for people or being there for people. There's not a lot of that right now in our
Yeah.
world. It's crumbling. The reason that our society is so chaotic is because we're not in touch with ourselves. We're not
Yep.
feeling our emotions. We're so programmed to be in fear and to act from a place of fear, which creates more fear, and to focus on things that are just so negative. It doesn't mean that these things aren't happening, but how can we, instead of focusing on which side to pick, how
Yeah.
do come together and focus on, how about we just scratch this stuff because this isn't working.
Yeah. It's coming back to the humanity of it all as well. When we break it down, like we're all just consciousness, right? We all sat with 5-MeO DMT last year together, and that medicine is called the God molecule. And that's the one where, like, truly the universe dissolves into nothingness, and you realize and recognize that you could see the fucking sacred geometry of how we are beyond our bodies. We are not these physical vessels that we walk in. We are not our meat suits. We are consciousness, and we're all consciousness. Everything that you're saying, like all of this hate, all of this division, all of this fighting, all of this war, all of it, this is the exemplification of people that have just gone so far. They're so far away from that knowing. And if we can do our part in coming back to that knowing, coming back to that understanding, and hoping that that reminder ripples, like, I mean, we're not going to solve world peace here, but like maybe
But like, we're paving a path for it
like,
to be possible.
Yeah.
We're paving, like, hey, this idea over here of death and destruction, yeah, that's one way to look at it. And there's also this perspective of
right.
unity and relating to one another through hard times, through our experiences. We're actually way more similar than we are different.
Totally.
So we're all human beings. And of course, every culture, every place, every person has their own beliefs and programming and whatever, but at the core of it, we all want love.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to be happy as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to live a good life
Mm-hmm.
and actually enjoy this world. This world has everything to offer. We have everything we could possibly need, but we've been destroying it and focusing again on these narratives and on people that think that it's it's bad. Everything's burning, everything's,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to be scared of everything.
Perspective, going back
Like,
to perspective, that algorithm of you're watching the news all the time. Yes, there is horrible things going on in the world, and staying informed and staying educated is very important, but and being extremely mindful of, are you just feeding yourself that information and working yourself up and getting upset? During the pandemic, my family, we were watching the news 24/7, and I was like, yes, it's important to know what's going on. I get it. But I'm like, at a certain point, the news is just repeating itself. And now I'm just infiltrating my mind 24/7 with doom and gloom, and life is going to end and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, give me the information. Tell me what I need to know. And then let's turn it off, like, and go outside and
right,
touch some grass. Like,
right,
Yeah.
right. I don't need to see the death toll,
yeah.
like information that's not actually going to help me feel better or help
Or
me
do
be
anything
more.
productive. You knowing how many people are dying in real time as it's ticking up is not going to support you in making impact right now.
No,
Like, you already know it's bad. Like,
imagine if the news was like, hey, let's all come together and pray for these people. Let's take a minute on air to come together and meditate and send love to the people that are suffering right now. If we did that, we wouldn't have any issues. Like, not
it would
a
help.
lot.
That would be more productive and more effective of having people tap into the love in their hearts, and having people tap into that place. Clarissa's like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm like, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but true
When
though,
can
like,
we start a news station?
no,
And
but it's true though, like
hey,
supporting
we're
people.
just gonna sit in prayer.
Well, because also people that don't meditate and people that aren't in that world, when they see those global meditations for world peace. They're like, bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, but is what you're doing helping? Because I don't think it is. And it's not about, I'm going to send my mystical and magical powers to the Middle East and everything's going to be better. It's about here. It's about right now, right here. Me, you, us. What is our vibration? What is the collective that we're rippling? And then from there, a little further, and then from there a little further, and then it's like these politicians and the people that are in office, and like these are human beings. So every action that every person in their life, the perspectives from everyone in their circles, it all matters. The way you show up, the way you treat the waiter at the restaurant matters. Like it all matters. It's all connected. We're coming to a close, and I really want to end with hearing your intentions for this experience, because what we're going to do is we're going into ceremony on Friday and Saturday night. We're going to process a little bit, and we're actually going to come back on here after our ceremony and talk about our experience as much as we're able to. And so I think it would be really cool to have the contrast of how we're feeling before. I'd love to hear from each of you guys what emotions you're feeling right now and what you're calling in for this experience.
Or do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay.
I know I'm asking the hard questions, guys. This isn't going to be like a...
It's hard because I have a few different intentions that I've been thinking about and feeling into, but I would say my main intention is just to be shown what I'm missing.
Yeah.
If there's anything that I'm missing, please just show me, as far as me being the best version of myself. It's not even that. It's the most empowered version of myself. How can I be of more service to myself and also the community and collective? And just please show me the truth. Please show me if there's anything that I'm missing that I haven't come across yet, or anything that's standing in my way that I haven't really like seen.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to be shown that. And please be gentle. Please be gentle. I'm open to receiving whatever, and I know that I will be given and shown exactly what I need to be. And I just want to keep it simple, because I can go on and on and on about like, oh, what's this? And what's this relationship mean? And all this meaning, and doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
How can I show up? And what am I missing? I'd say that's my main intention. Was there a second part of the question? Sorry.
And just how you're feeling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm like, now that the three of us are together, I'm feeling so much more at ease and just trusting, and we're like, okay, like it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fine. And it is. And I feel very confident. I feel very like, yeah, just like we're good, you know. And of course, anxiety, nerves, fear, just things coming up, but it's almost like, yeah, okay. Like I feel pretty good. I'm scared, but that's it. Like I'm gonna do it anyway, and I hear you. I'm not ignoring you, but we're just like, okay, well, counting down the hours to when we go. Hopefully, I would love to connect with ancestors as well, if that's possible. But you know, I'm open.
I love it. Claressa?
Yeah, I've been incredibly terrified, but this was also how I felt prior to Bufo. I was like, oh my God, I have this intense fear, right? And I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were like, so how are you feeling about your journey coming up? And my shoulders went like this. And I was like, I'm incredibly terrified. My body obviously is not hiding it at all. I also know that because there's so much fear, that there's going to be so much juiciness that I'm going to be dropped into.
Right.
So that's where I am where I'm feeling about this journey. And then my intention going into it is similar. It's just wanting to remove the limitations that I set for myself of the blocks that I've placed there. Sometimes I feel like these blocks are really hard for me to move, and just to show me the things that I'm blinded to, because we're all blind to things, because we just sometimes have this narrow view of my perspective, my ways that I've lived, and really just to help push me through those feelings of enoughness, right? Like that's my struggle.
Yeah.
That like like I'm never going to be enough. Like I'm never going to be enough no matter what I do, no matter how hard I work, no matter what I do, it's never going to be enough. And I want to remove those limiting beliefs, all of the limitations that I've placed on myself, again, based off of my ancestors and
Right.
things that lived and experienced. I don't want to live with that baggage anymore. I just want to live in a place of surrender to myself.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Ugh, I love that. I feel really similarly to both of you guys. I feel a lot of fear, but I feel ready. But I'm scared, but I'm ready. But I'm scared, but I'm ready. I feel way better being in the presence of both of you guys. I'm open to being shown whatever wants to come up, like show me what I need to see in order to step into the highest version of myself, show me what's blocking me. But like an additional layer to it that I'd love is I would really love to be able to tap into that felt sense of, obviously it's all about the journey. Like there is no final destination, but I am putting in a lot of work towards this version of life that I'd like to be living. I would love if Aya could give me a glimpse into what that feeling is going to be, right? Because when we have these goals and we have these dreams, a lot of us think it's like, oh, when I get this thing, then I'll be great. But really, what we're chasing is a feeling. We're chasing a felt sense, internal thing. I would love to be shown what that feeling is like in my body and to get to experience that feeling in my body, because I feel like that will help me as I continue on this path to stay motivated and to stay in alignment with like, all right, if it's not that feeling, then let's, we're working towards this. But I'm like, show me what you got, Mama Aya, let's go. Like, it's happening.
I think when you're talking, Amanda, which I would also like to add, is show me what's possible.
Yeah, show me how good it gets.
Yeah,
Show me how good it gets. That's
Please.
been our catchphrase for the last few years. Okay, universe, show me how good it gets. Show me the magic. More of that, please. So I'm so grateful to both of you guys. I know obviously being on a podcast is not a big deal, but sharing this type of stuff is uncomfortable and vulnerable, and it's a lot. And I'm sure the next one may or may not be even more vulnerable and raw. So I just thank you now and thank you in advance for saying yes and for sharing your hearts and your souls with me, with my audience. And I truly, truly hope that anybody listening to this, that you get whatever you need to receive from this. And if you have any questions about the medicine path or personal development or learning more about yourself, obviously feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to Claressa, Emily. We all are in this space. We're all here to help and support. And I'm so happy that you guys listened, and tune in for next week for part 2 post Aya. Let's go.
Yeah.
See you guys on the other
Yay.
side.
Bye.